Well, we're getting to see you in this interesting film, What Remains. What's can you tease is the premise of this film?
Yeah, well, it's kind of because there's so many twists and turns and mysteries in it. So, I mean, the best thing is that it's a movie about forgiveness and how messy that can be and how sticky that can be. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can, tease that I play a pastor who has he has a teenage son, and they've gone through a tragedy. We pick up where they've gone through a tragedy in their family. Let's say 5 years prior to the movie, and they're still trying to pick up the pieces. And My character's trying to um, practice forgiveness, which sometimes is easier on paper than it is in reality.
Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yes, exactly. Better said. Yeah, easier said than done. Um, so yeah, that's the tease without trying to give anything away.
Is that then also what you felt was challenging about the role? Was trying to find the balance between that nuance?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the one of the things that drew me to the role is when I read it, and Nathan Scoggins, who wrote and directed, we're friends, and he uh, gave it to me to read, not with this pretense of, hey, I want you to read and play this part. It was just as a friend. He had written the script, and he's like, hey, I just finished the script. I appreciate some prayer, and I'm like, yeah, no problem. And then I said, hey, can I read it? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I just read it just for a friend, and I was drawn to the story mainly because it is messy, because it doesn't end in a nice neat bow. It ends where I feel like people will walk away from it and it generates conversation, as opposed to just, oh, and it was a happy ending, or oh, it was a horrible ending, or but it generates just like, what do you think happened after the credits are done rolling? And so that intrigued me. And then the character, uh, I was drawn to him because I guess I just identified. I was like, okay, given if I was in those very tough circumstances, I would do the same thing. And it's a tough decision, but I would do that. And so those things kind of drew me in, as far as wanting to play the role.
I know you mentioned you were familiar with Nathan, but were you familiar then with any of your other co-stars before working with them here on What Remains?
I mean, only in the things. Well, honestly, see, Anne Heche, I obviously had seen in a couple of things, and I was familiar with her. I didn't know that we until later that we had the same. We're part of the same agency. Kellen Lutz, I think I'm just not the demographic, so I've never seen any Twilight movies. But we we had mutual acquaintances, but we had never met. Just kind of people who had I think my wife at one point had been to a Bible study that he was a part of, and so like these kind of things, but we had never met, and I hadn't seen his work. Um, and So it was fun to meet new people and work with new people.
Did you spend much time then with Marcus to sort of develop that familial bond you guys needed?
Mainly on set. I mean, this was an independent film, and so we're all off uh, to Amarillo to film. I did in this day and age, so like Marcus, he auditioned via Zoom, and so I read with him via Zoom, and then when we got to Amarillo, we I think we really connected right away with the fact that he's a theater kid. Went to Carnegie Mellon and then went on to New York, and uh, I was a theater major as well and a theater kid, and so like we connected with that, and then being a father of multiple kids, it was easy to kind of step in and just take on. I am a father. I've also been an acting teacher, so that kind of fatherly bond, mentor, it was easy to step into, and I think it was easy for him to step into, and so we connected right away and relatively easy. And when you're filming, there's lots of downtime where you can just sit and talk and connect. Um, uh, and so yeah, we had to kind of do it on the fly, but I think it worked out.
There is this beautiful bond that you do share. The two of you do seem to connected. So it's interesting that it was just picked up sort of on the fly. But here, you are playing a pastor, and he's part of your flock as well. So, and as a father, of course, you have a connection with having with being a father anyway. So there's that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
There were some very intriguing and very intense scenes to this, though. What were some of the scenes that maybe challenged you more, or maybe that you were very uh, that you felt were maybe beautifully turned out beautifully when you saw the film later?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I mean, it's when you're filming, sometimes, at least for me, like day to day, and even scene to scene, like there's certain scenes that you do, and you, from an acting perspective, like I feel it. There's just like a feeling of like, yeah, I think this is working, and I like what I did. And like there was a scene with Kellen, after we've completed a kind of a full day's work, and I'm sitting on the back of a truck, and we have the scene kind of talking about my wife, and it was like the sun was going down, and it was one of those scenes that as we were doing it, um I was feeling like, okay, I think this is working. In contrast, and there's times when you're doing scenes where you have to, like I had to just trust Nathan. There's a scene when, not to give anything away, but there's this scene of a reveal, where something bad has happened, and my son comes, and shows me what had happened, and it's all left up to our imaginations. The audience doesn't like it doesn't see anything overly graphic. It's left to their imagination, left to my imagination, and the playing and reacting to seeing this for the first time. That was one of those nights, we were shooting at night, where I was just, I don't know. I feel like I was like kind of shooting in the dark, and I just had to look at Nathan and say, "Hey, are you happy? Like, I'm gonna trust you because I can't tell right now. Like, are you happy? Did we get everything?" And I just had to rely on him, because the thing is, like, as an actor, I had an old acting teacher who used to call actors, when you're acting, that you're in a fishbowl. And the idea, is like a fishbowl. If you're a fish in a fishbowl and you're looking out, what you see out is skewed by the bowl. It's not exactly reality, as opposed to someone who's outside of the bowl can can speak to what things really are. And so that's why, actors need directors, is because sometimes we're in the fishbowl and we think something's going really poorly and it's actually going really well, and then vice versa. Sometimes we think things are going really well and it's actually going poorly, and the director outside that fishbowl can go, no, actually, you this is what's happening. And so, some days I had to really rely on Nathan, and some days I was feeling really good. But I mean, there's no light scene in, I mean, there's maybe like a couple of flashbacks that are fun and light, and just a couple of minor moments, but it's heavy material. So every day and every night we filmed was like, okay, here we go. There's another here's another rough scene that we gotta, do. So
There's that trust there that you you feel with Nathan, so that's beautiful that you feel that he's gonna show you your best and also be honest with you about where you need to tweak things and things like that. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad
mean,
that it turned out so nicely.
yeah, I mean, because it's his baby too. He wrote and directed it.
Sure,
So, and we were shooting pretty short days. I mean, we were always kind of on time. So, I trusted him that if it was like, no, we didn't, we got to go again, that he wouldn't just move on just for the sake of moving
sure,
on.
sure. Of
You know,
course. Yeah, he wanted to make sure uh he got everything perfect the way that he visioned it to be.
yeah, yeah.
Well, how did you shake off then a long day of filming these deep scenes?
It was kind of a routine. I tend to like, after reading a script and when it's time to work, I really like I do plot where I'm going because you're shooting out of order most of the time. Um, but I am very compartmentalized in that like when it's a Monday, I'm the night before I have memorized and prepared myself for Monday. And then once I'm done with Monday, whatever time I get, back home or back to the hotel, then I go, okay, now let's look at what is required for Tuesday. And I start digging into Tuesday and then I go to sleep ready and go do Tuesday and then get home Tuesday and get ready and that's ready for Wednesday. And so um it was a kind of a fast and furious shoot. There wasn't a lot of like days off. So I mean the routine really was that I would finish a day and I'd go back to I'd usually grab some snacks and I'd go back to the hotel and sit down and start working on what was required the next day. Um, and then get some sleep and get ready to do it. And then when I did have a day off, uh, I would sleep a ton and I'd maybe go to the gym and work out. There was a I think there was a time when I was able to. We had a long weekend, or at least I had a long weekend, and so I was able to fly back home and be with my family for a couple of days. So that was a good way to kind of decompress. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of living in a good misery for a few weeks. I remember distinctly there was a scene. It was a day that was light for me, where I literally just had one scene of just seeing my son uh, at school and talking to him. And it wasn't like a uber light scene, but it was compared to the other things I had to do. It was fairly small and light, and it was funny because I was there on set, and it was like a day that then led into a weekend. So I was like, okay, I just got to do this one little scene, and I have a weekend. And I felt myself like, I think even Nathan was like, wow, you're so light. Like I was joking around and think, and it was because I felt like, well, this is one of those few light moments I have in this movie. So
What do you hope then viewers take away from watching What Remains? Is there something you hope lingers with them?
yeah, I mean, I hope it generates conversation. And I, I I ultimately I hope that it kind of hopefully sparks people to, I don't know, if they have any unresolved business with family or friends or especially in this time of the year with the holidays with Christmas and coming off of Thanksgiving, that like if there's, especially with family, if there's any unresolved things with family that maybe would spark people to want to like reach out to a long lost relative or something that um and I don't know, try to reconcile, try to bury the hatchet, try to like move forward. I hope that would be great if that happened.
Are there any other projects then that you've been busy working on recently?
Currently, well, Nathan and I are kind of developing two projects, both television projects. One is a little farther along. We're just kind of in rewrites and of it, and hope that we hope to be filming it next year. And the other one is it, it's requiring a little bit more dismantling and putting back together, so that's going to take a little time. But um, we just, I think, really enjoyed working together. I think we collaborate really well together, not just actor director, but also like on scripts and things like that. So um and so yeah, so we're working on a couple things, and because I think we were in the midst of doing this um and kind of starting to work on this project together, and I'm like, dude, I want to like cultivate this relationship. Like, I don't want to just be one and done. So yeah, we hope, we'll see.
Well, fingers crossed then. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the wonderful work you did on Black Lightning.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
What did you personally take away from your time working on that series?
You know what? I mean, so many things, but like the one of the first things that comes to mind, it was the first um major thing where I was kind of carrying the load, and it I think it prepared me for the future. I prior to it, I've always just wanted to be an actor, and people have said, "Oh, you should be a leader, and you should do this," and I've always kind of shied away from that. And then very early on, working on Black Lightning, I started getting that bug of wanting to. I was like, oh, I think I see why actors want to produce and have more control of the things they do, and uh, it the character and my role was a leadership role, and so it kind of got me excited about that, which I think prepared me for um, work, working with Nathan on this film, and then also the projects that we're working on together now are projects that I would act in, but also produce. And Black Lightning kind of took the lid off that and got me not a begrudging thing, but excited and wanting to step into that. So, and then I can't forever the fact that I've got a chance to bring an African American hero, superhero, to light and to television. Um, uh, I think that that's just forever. I'll be happy about that.
Well, our fingers are crossed that maybe with the Flash ending, Jefferson Pierce might make a reappearance. But I know you probably won't be able to comment on that in the near future.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, to be, it's so weird. It's the end of an era, definitely an end of a
Absolutely.
chapter. The whole Arrowverse. We've had it in our culture for so long, and everything has its time, and so it's kind of odd, things shifting.
Well, what would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the beautiful work you continue to do on our screens, whether it's the big one or the small one?
I just want to say thank you for supporting me. Um, yeah, thank you for being fans. I hope I've always, you know, um, told the stories of these characters truthfully and honestly, and um, I look forward to sharing more.
Well, you certainly never disappoint whenever we see you on our screen, whether you're emotionally tugging at our hearts or we're following you with our hearts beating super fast on the edge of your seat watching. So I think what remains is going to be quite an interesting addition to the wonderful work you've done before. And
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what others have to say about it. It looks like people are really going to be fascinated, and I think they're, like you said, it's gonna linger with them and wondering what happens once the credit roll.
Oh man, I hope so. I really do. It's, I think it's definitely one of the more dramatic things that I've done, um, especially on the big screen. I think I think about it, done more comedies and things like that. So I think so. And yeah, yeah, and I hope that people will remember Anne, who's just awesome in the film. I mean, it was just a pleasure to work with her. We had, every scene we had was very important, but it was like it was few, but she was just a force to work with, so that was a lot of fun. So I hope that people enjoy it and remember her well.